Welcome to the Solemn Vanguard channel. Today we are going over a back-to-back first place V premium deck of mine. It is Prism Highlander a la Solemn. That's what I'll dub it, whatever. This was for Springfest Belgium and Springfest Germany. We got first place back-to-back both weekends, and then in premium we did the same thing. And so of course I need to shout out the powerful team Mohammed and Jay. Super powerful players. We carried each other, very important. First weekend I had the better record. Second weekend I didn't have the better record, but the point of having a strong team, of course, is, you know, equalizing your variance. Sometimes shit goes wrong for one player, it doesn't go wrong for the others, and vice versa, and that way, you know, you all pull each other up. Now, of course, shout out to 50cards.shop. He's the reason I have some of the SPs in this deck, though this one is not that blinked. Use the code Solemn if you need a discount at the store. Link will be in the description. And of course, also shout out to Team WCC. Awesome team. We didn't test that much for this season in particular. I mostly tested against myself, a little bit against Mo and Jay, but our events were so far apart that, you know, the testing schedules just didn't properly line up. So I went with Prism Highlander. My reasoning essentially was that Prism is still best deck. I think it really needs to be hit. Bushiroad, if you're watching, you should hit Rosa to 0. Fuck her. Dead. The deck will still be fine. I can go into more detail. It'll still be like a casually fine deck, but at least competitively it will no longer be a menace. You can keep on hitting stuff around it, but it's Prism that's the problem. You hit Lieselot, I'll play something else, but I'll still play Prism. It's just the reality of the situation. You take Aqua next, fine, I'll find another grade 2. As long as Prism is alive, people will play Prism because it's just that oppressively insane. Now, the reasoning for the Highlander part is because you have Prism, which is hyper consistent, you know, just a powerhouse with huge hand, will always do the same game plan, unless when it doesn't. That's why I'm playing also the Ange section. So I wanted a little bit of high roll. I wanted the option to auto-win against other Prism players when maybe they high-rolled in another way. You know, if you play the Prism mirror and both players are pretty good, they're not making awful misplays, and they're playing basically the same deck, it's just gonna boil down to like, who gets sackier, you know, who goes first, who gets the crits, who sees all the heals and so forth, and that's awful. So by adding a little bit of that extra sack potential, I can beat mirrors in more ways. So for that reason, we have the Highlander stuff, but I'll show you the specifics for that later. So we start off, of course, with our 4 Prism. This is your main ride, so you play 4. I hope I don't have to explain too much why. Then 2 Ange. Basically, my reasoning for Ange is that I played Prism in BRO as well. I played 2 regions, and my 4 losses across those 2 regions, 3 of them were by not getting my grade 3 to hand. And that is awful. You know, riding a heal guard or riding nothing at all auto loses you the game. So I'm never playing a 4 grade 3 deck ever again in my life. For that reason, I added the Anges. It's basically like playing Prism, just slightly more shit. You know, do I want to ride Ange? No, not really. But would I rather ride Ange than being stuck on grade 2? Absolutely. So for that reason, 2 Ange. Also, it does interact with some of the other cards in the deck. And also, going first, it has more aggression than Prism. So certain rounds, I literally just rode Ange and won off that ride. Also, it generates an extra force marker. So if you go first and you ride Ange, it generates you the force marker. And then after that, you go into Prism. And now you just play a Prism game plan. You're playing a stronger Prism game plan because you just cycled 1 extra force, which you get to use for the rest of the game. Despite all of that, the main reasoning is the potential with, you know, some of the stuff in the deck, and most importantly, not misriding. Next, we're playing 4 Rosa. This beautiful lady, of course, is just part of the Prism engine, and you need to play it. I don't know what else to say. Then we have 4 Lieselot, of course. Incredible grade 2 game card. It's not really a grade 2 game, right? Like just a rush card, an early aggro, free plussing. It does basically everything Bermuda wants to be doing. It's also the way you multi-attack of Ange, so you basically bounce everything and then you call a Lieselot, and then Lieselot calls something else to the other force marker, and then whatever it is, it will still hit. Then we play triple Aqua. Aqua bounces back Lieselot early game, which means you get to reuse her and basically go crazy. She also bounces some other cards in this deck that I will get to very, very soon that make the deck way better as well. Now, the reason we're playing 3 is because, again, we don't want to run too many 4-offs for reasons we will get into later. Next, we are playing the 1 of this. This girl is really solid. She essentially dishes 1, checks top 3, and then you add 1 to hand and send the rest to deck, bottom deck specifically, and then she gains power. So on the vert turn, you can like keep on reusing her. This is probably the only card where I was like, damn, I wish I had more of this, but finding room is just way too hard. So one thing you can do is, if you are on Ange and you really are looking for something specific, this can be your call target off Ange to then, you know, hopefully search, because you get to search 3 cards deeper. Next, we are running the best thing in the deck, the Pearl Sisters. This is the best high roll. They're also the reason to play Highlander mostly, but there's other reasons as well. we'll get to that. But essentially, by finding both of them together, you basically auto-win. My second run in Germany, I saw these almost every round for some goddamn reason. Not always on turn 2, but sometimes on turn 2. So basically, I saw it on turn 2, I saw it on turn 3, I saw it on turn 4. I don't know, that was just sacky as hell. Super powerful stuff. And of course, we do have searchers for them, but we'll get to that later. But so these two are essentially very strong in Vert because you call them down, you swing with them for huge numbers on your force markers. Vert swings, calls them back to hand, so they're free from your opponent attacking them. They're free from your opponent retiring them with effects and so forth. And then next turn, you just call them back and they do the same attacks again. They come back to hand and you keep on doing that. Now, the reason these are extra good in this list in particular as well is because we play Ange. So if you draw any of the two Pearl Sisters together with one Ange, what you can do is you will call your Ange and then you will call your Pearl Sister. Ange will attack, bounce 4 other normal units, create an extra force, call the second Pearl Sister, and now you have both Pearl Sisters. So now your opponent is on a clock because they have to basically kill these Pearl Sisters the coming turn, and otherwise you're going to bounce them to hand every turn with Vert. You're basically going to get to attack with them continuously on your opponent with the Vert turns on top of that. Can randomly high roll by opening one of these and one of these, which again you can't do in normal Prism. But there's more ways we can actually search them, so more on that later. But that's also the reason why I get them so often, because, you know, Ange literally just searches the second copy. And of course, if you open both of them on Ange, you can also just, you know, attack with these. Ange attacks, bounces them back, so now they're safe, and then it calls the Lieselot out. So your 4th and 5th attack aren't as big, but, you know, these are plenty pressure already. Then we have 4 grade 3 Searcher. Of course, we're already running a low count grade 3 deck, so we want to find those grade 3s in order to write them and not miswrite. Then we have our Clear. This is in order to find, well, Prism stuff. This is like the Prism card. I hope I don't have to explain why. We have our Spiana. This is a counter charger that also sends back heals to deck. I don't know why they gave us that. And then we can also do that every turn because you can call it, send back, and then Vert or Ange bounces her back, and you can just keep on reusing that. We have 1 Nikita, and the reason you only play 1 is because it can only resolve ones anyway. Essentially, you Soul Blast as much as you want, and then it gains power and shield depending on the amount of Soul Blast, and then if you hit 3 Soul Blasts, you draw a card. The way you use this is if it's in your hand and your opponent is about to, you know, basically kill you, you use this to get rid of all your soul. Sure, you lose Vert, her Soul Blast or whatever, but it's better than dying. So it's basically a one-time emergency Ellie, or bigger than Ellie. But what it can also do is you can search it of Ange. So if you wrote Ange and you notice, damn, my hand is small, I really need to, you know, draw 1 extra card on this Ange turn. This can be your call target for Ange because you will have 0, 1, 2 in soul, which is 3 cards, meaning you draw 1. And then you will basically have a gigantic Nikita. If you see any crits, this thing becomes, you know, disgustingly hard to guard and huge. And then of course you also, you know, plussed. So it's basically like a comparable plus to a Vert turn, but on Ange. So by running 1, you have access to a better Ange turn than if you didn't run the 1. And of course, because we are playing Highlander stuff, running like a few 1-offs and 2-offs does make hitting that a bit more consistent as well. However, now we get to like, why is this Highlander? What's the point? Well, here's the star of the show. We have Betty. I saw a lot of people not understanding what the hell the point was of Betty in this deck. Like, you run so many 4-offs, you're gonna miss blah 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 blah. Betty, if you don't know the effect, check stop 7. And then if all of the normal units have different names, you can grab a card from it and send the card from your hand back to deck. Now that wording is very important. You first send back, but that part isn't important. What's important is that it looks for different named normal units. So if you check top 7, right, a bunch of them are already gonna be triggers. This is not like Katire, where any kind of like doubling of names is gonna ruin you. Very often, you check top 7 and you're like, oh, there's 3 triggers in here or something like that. And then your final 4 need to be the only thing different. But more important than that, the more your prisms look for each other, the more likely it is that this is gonna start hitting. Because remember, Rosa, you know, starts thinning all the prism names out. Clear already tried to thin a prism name out, and usually they hit. So a lot of your 4-offs actually vanish from your deck over time. So of course, if you're like, oh, I call Betty on turn 1 and she missed. Yeah, no fucking shit, she missed. And sometimes she even doesn't. So sometimes you can't even get lucky that way. But the point is that as the game progresses, it becomes more and more likely that she doesn't miss. And beyond that, you get to reuse her every turn. So it doesn't matter that she sometimes misses. Like, I think my miss and hits on the first tournament was like 5-2. You know, I hit 5 times, I missed 2 times. Would I have liked to hit the 2 times? Sure, but who cares? If you're hitting just a few times, this is already huge. Against Astral Poets and Nitros, you can look for draw PGs. If you're being rushed, you know, you might find a Heal Guardian. If you're looking for some ride or a Lieselot early game, again, if you hit, cool, here you go, here's your high roll. More importantly though, if you find your Pearl Sister, you can randomly win off that as well. So this is literally just, you can reuse it. You don't have to hit every time. Even better than that, later into the game, you're confirmed to have Pearl Sisters. It's already decided. Unless they're in damage, you're gonna have them. It's that easy, because you start getting deck thinner. Prism was running Ellie to not deck out. And so right now we don't have Ellie, we might deck out, but we will hit Betty. It's a similar theory to why control decks in Hearthstone started running Zephrys and Dragon Queen Alexstrasza even when they weren't playing Highlander. So if you don't know those decks, Dragon Queen Alexstrasza and Zephrys say they get a broken effect if all of your deck is Highlander. But people put them in non-Highlander decks because as you got to deck out, your deck automatically became Highlander. And so for that reason, if you're getting closer to deck out, you can literally go like Betty, take out the normal unit, put a crit back from your hand, and you're basically, whenever she resolves, ensuring that you start seeing more crits. So the longer the game goes on, the more likely it is that you have both Pearl Sisters and crits back into your deck. That makes the ceiling of the end of the game of this deck so much higher. It's absolutely insane. But of course, you can also just do early high rolls, find your Pearl Sisters, and just auto win of those as well. For that reason, we have the Bettys. Again, everything in this deck can be searched for. Like, I've also done Betty, and then Aqua, bounce Betty back, Betty, find, you know, the grade 2 girl that checks top 3, check top 3, find Betty, do a Betty again, and you can just keep on cycling like that, tin, look for your Pearl Sisters, and you find them, okay, now we're gonna try to go for the win. Now, of course, you don't want to minus your hand like that when you're, you know, about to die, but if you notice, damn, I'm super comfortable and I want to get ahead in the game, that is the type of thing you can do. Absolutely cracked, and if she misses, okay, whatever, I'll just swing on my force marker, attack third, put her back to hand, let's retry next turn. This deck has a huge hand anyway, I got time, it's fine, but I am making my odds of randomly sacking and high rolling you out of the game bigger every turn, and I get to try. So Betty, absolutely huge card, basically does the same thing as Katire did in the Highlander Prism build, just, you know, a bit less. Super excited for this build. This actually made me, you know, enjoy playing Prism at least, because I couldn't put myself through playing more Prism. Are we 2 years in now with Prism soon? No, 1.5 years. It feels like 4 years at this point. Prism needs to be banned, but at least this was actually really fun. Next, we have our 4 crits, 4 draw PGs, 4 heals, and 1v. I mean, there's nothing to say here. This is super standard. So this was my Prism Highlander a la Solemn deck. Hope you found this interesting. Again, shout outs to the team, Jay, Mo, super powerful players. Also shout out to 50cards.shop. Use code Solemn for a discount. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you soon. Ciao.